everyone. So I'm going to talk about all everything, like the challenges that and tests that I faced traveling, and as far as my eating goes while traveling, because I am someone who definitely wants to stay raw as much as possible, and moving kind of really challenges you and tests you in that area. And it really did for me, because traveling from Alaska to southern Arizona is a long ways. Even by flying, it takes at least an entire day, depending on your travel, airline flights and everything. But it essentially kind of takes a full day just for flying. But driving, it takes you several days. But for me, I flew while my parents drove Elsie, my little kitty, down here. It was over 3,500 miles, like I mentioned in some of my previous videos. But I flew. I decided to take a flight down here, because I didn't want to deal with the long drive. Really, it would be a wonderful once-in-a-lifetime experience, but it meant more for me to take a flight down here than to drive and endure that long sitting. That's the main thing that got me, that I knew it would make me feel very, very bad sitting that long. And then it would really, really test me with eating raw, or actually trying to get enough in eating raw on the road. I know it's definitely doable and possible, but for me, I rely heavily on smoothies and juices and my blender and my juicer to get most of my calories in on a raw foods diet, because for me, it is extremely hard for me to get enough in on a raw foods diet. I struggle nearly every day with trying to get enough in for my body on a raw foods diet, but I definitely don't want to stray away from it, because I love how it makes me feel. But there are times where I kind of have to go to the next best option, and this travel, this move really tested me in that area, and so I kind of had to go to my next best options. So for me, eating fully raw means eating the fresh, whole, ripe, raw, fresh fruit and vegetables and leafy greens and nuts and seeds straight from their plant source, without processing them in any way, meaning not using a blender, not using a juicer, not using a food processor of any kind, just eating the fruits straight just the way they are. And in today's day and age, most, if not all, raw foodists use a blender. So technically, when you think about it, eating fully raw, no one's really truly eating fully raw. I'm sure a lot of you raw foodies have heard other opinions from other raw YouTubers out there, raw food YouTubers out there. And it makes sense though, it makes sense, but what does eating fully raw mean to you? And of course, for me, I do classify myself as fully raw, but technically I'm not, because I do eat frozen vegetables, specifically frozen peas, which most definitely are steamed or blanched in some way at the factory, and then frozen, shipped off to you, off to the stores, and then you buy it. But I don't physically and deliberately cook it myself. I just let them thaw out on my countertop. And I do eat nuts and seeds that are roasty and toasty. I always try to find the nuts and seeds that are fully raw, that are the rawest possible, that say raw, but most likely most nuts and seeds are not raw, even though they say they're raw. Most likely they're roasted or dried at a high heated temperature in some form. And so I do go with my next best option sometimes when I can't find where it says actually raw or nuts or seeds. Then I will go for the roasty toasty ones, which I know is not good, but it's the best I can do in the moment at times. And then I most definitely eat herbs and spices that are dried, or the pre-made packaged herbs and spices. So most likely with the spices in today's world, they're heated at some high temperature or dried in some way. So the herbs and spices technically are not fully raw. And So I do also eat dried fruits, which are not technically fully raw because they're dehydrated. But I know there are some brands of dates out there and some brands of dried fruit companies out there that do treat the fruit at really high temperatures in order to dry them out, and essentially they're kind of cooking them a little bit. So in a sense, that's not fully raw either, but I definitely eat or consume dried fruits quite often, not a whole lot, but often, to help get me enough calories in, you know. I am always good with going with the next best option. I have learned not to stress yourself out or worry, because that is one, you can actually do more harm to yourself trying to be as pure as possible than just settling with the next best thing. Of course, yes, it's good not to just settle, you know, with the low grade, but you know, you do the best that you can. And if you're starting to get to the point where you're really stressing yourself out, then that's when eating healthy starts, when that's not a healthy mindset for eating healthy. It should not stress you out. So I am good with going with my next best option. So eating frozen veggies, eating pasteurized juices, drinking pasteurized juices and smoothies once in a while, and eating those dried fruits and roasty toasty nuts and seeds. I'm good with it. I'm good with it because I'm not going to stress myself out trying to stay the purest as possible, because as wonderful as that sounds to do, and we all kind of want to do that once we find out about true health, you know, it's pretty hard to do that in today's day and age. You know, it's really kind of hard to do that. So you kind of always settle, do the best that you can, but don't stress yourself out. Don't worry. If you're eating vegan, plant-based, and as raw as possible, you're doing mighty fantastic. Okay, like really, really fantastic, okay? So one question, actually I got a lot of questions from you guys about this. And so the first one was from Aziza Nadia. So hi Aziza, if you're watching. She said, she said, Miss Staci, can you talk about keeping it raw during the long flight from Alaska to Arizona? I figure that would be very difficult and interesting. I'm glad you're finding Arizona a better place to live. I hope you're doing well. Adriana Peterson. So hi Adriana, if you're watching. She said, Staci, perhaps do a video on traveling like you did with such a big move and eating raw while doing it. You must have faced some challenges with that. Please share. I think eating fully raw is the easiest way to eat. It's just the question and the problem is can you eat enough? Can you eat enough? And traveling, that's the best way to eat, is fully raw too. That's the easiest way. You just pack your fruit in your bag. That's essentially all you need. And with your nuts and seeds and leafy greens, easy to pack. But the question is, can you eat enough of it to sustain your body? You can bring fruit with you on the plane. I guess it depends on what airline you're on, but I fly Alaska Airlines, and you can bring fruit and food on the plane. And of course, you can't bring liquids. There's a problem with liquids, but I most certainly bring dates and nuts, definitely those, or a nice trail mix, you know, kind of make your own trail mix with raisins, dates, other dried fruits with nuts and seeds in there, and that's really good. But then definitely bring like a bag of grapes or a few bananas with you. Passes through TSA beautifully, wonderfully, and you are set. When I fly from Alaska to come to the lower 48, is I'm always kind of stuck with those flights, those what they call red-eye flights. So you board the plane at like 12:30 or 1 in the morning, and you're flying. The next destination is always Seattle. That's the most common main hub from Alaska to the lower 48. And then you're in the airport for a couple hours, depending on how long your layover is, and then you take your flight to your next state, or depending on how far you're going. And I know for me it takes almost an entire full day to get to my destination. I kind of slept on the plane because it's late at night, so I made sure I had my normal big raw dinner before I left on my flight. And so I'm full, and you don't eat at night, so that covered the most of my trip. And so I usually don't eat until 11 or noon the next day. And so usually I really didn't need to eat anything because I was traveling during my times that I normally don't eat. And so once I got to Tucson, and this is how it was the same with my other past traveling trips, whenever I would get to my destination, that's when I would start feeling my hunger. Of course, you'd be so freaking tired because you're traveling, you're not very comfortable or getting your proper enough sleep. And so you're tired. I guess that's what you call the jet lag. And but yet you are hungry too. And so I know I still have my food with me, so I snack on that enough until I can get to the point to where I can go grocery shopping to get enough food for me, But I know here, this is kind of interesting because this is what I ran into. This was one of the big challenges, is once I got here, the only food I had was what I packed with me, which was the dates and nuts and a few fresh fruits. And so whatever I had left with me, I met my parents here. So we timed it just right to where my flight arrived when they were already here in Tucson. They were kind of waiting for me to arrive. So we planned it just right, which is really, really nice. So what I had was whatever leftover food I could fit in the truck. I had a bunch of nuts. I did have a few, my dried fruits, and I had some fresh food. But actually, no, I kind of didn't, because that's 7 days. My mom had some fresh food, but that got me through until I could actually go to the grocery store with my parents to actually kind of buy a little, a little stash of food. But I found out that my the refrigerator that was in this rental home that I'm in, was not working. It was on, like when you opened the door, the light turned on, but it wouldn't get cold. The freezer wasn't working and the refrigerator was not working to where the temperature was not cool enough to store fresh veggies or fresh leafy greens or even other fruits. So if I were to make my meal or whatever, I wouldn't be able to store it in the fridge. Same with smoothies too, because when I eat a smoothie or a juice, it usually takes me a couple hours to get through it because it's such a high volume. And so right when I got down here, it was already pretty darn hot, pretty warm. It was in the upper 80s and it hit the 90s a couple times. So that means the house inside was warm, and so I couldn't even get cold water or anything, or get water cool enough. And it lasted for a week because it took about a week for them to get the new refrigerator. So this is my new refrigerator, but right when I moved in, I had to wait an extra week just to get a refrigerator. So that meant that I couldn't make I could make some of my meals, but I really couldn't buy any veggies or leafy greens because they would go bad by the next day because it would be warm in the home and I don't have a refrigerator to keep them nice and crispy. So what I had to do is I had to kind of eat for each day, like go to the store each day and just buy a raw meal or buy fruits and veggie, or the fruits that I could, dates and nuts that I could. And but at the same time, I was trying to get everything set up, so I was moving and really active. And there was only so many days I had with my parents before I had to take them back to the airport. And so they were helping me trying to get a table and chairs and everything set up because I can't do that myself. It's too heavy. And I'm trying to save enough money to where I don't have to pay somebody else to do it. So we were just racing around trying to get things set up before they had to go. Because once they got here, they had 3 days before they had to catch their plane back home to Alaska. And so we were on it. And so that means we actually did go out to eat for most nights for most nights for dinner and everything. So what I did is I settled with the next best option, which was a cooked vegan meal. And a lot of the places, surprisingly, the restaurants, you can tailor make the meals that they have to fit your need preferences, and a lot of them are going vegan, and you can tailor make them to being raw too. But there's some restaurants where I actually had a cooked vegan meal, which was like, we went to a Mexican place, which is where I had a bean burrito with rice and a salad. So that was very salty. I'm not used to high salt. And so that's one thing, eating out, things are usually loaded with a lot of salt, sodium, and a lot of fat too, oils and stuff. But I had it tailor-made as the best that I could, and it got me through, because I actually needed that, because that's where I got a bulk of my calories to keep going, you know. And because when it comes to fresh fruit, I can eat fruit, but there's only so much I can fit in my stomach throughout the day. So those vegan meals really helped me in a pinch, until I could get my blender, until I can get my refrigerator, you know, to get things going. Set up to where I can make my tailor-made raw meals in my house, you know. And so that's what I did. And then during the day, I did settle for Cliff Bars, which I like, again, I have some clips for you guys. And there were some raw wraps, since here in Tucson there's a Whole Foods market, there's a Sprouts Farmers Market, Trader Joe's, so there's a lot of stores and smoothie places here where you can get raw options, pre-made meals, that they will do on the spot for you, or it's pre-made, and it is very, very fresh. And so in Alaska, there's really nothing like that. So I was really happy when I got down here. Actually, I researched it before I got down here, so I kind of already had a plan in place. And so I was able to get some raw wraps and some energy bars at these health food stores and everything, that helped for during the day, that was more denser. So I could keep going with my parents every day. And I just had to do that for a week. But the other big challenges that came with settling with the next best option is dealing with the digestion problem. And because I noticed the food I was eating, I'm not used to such high sodium, higher fat, and highly processed and cooked foods. And so I really felt it. It did not make me feel good. I really started breaking out pretty bad. And I noticed when I would go to the bathroom, the food would not be digested. And so it would be digested, but it wouldn't be really digested at all. And so those were some big signs to me, like, yep, this is what happens when we stray away from the right foods that we're meant to eat. And I felt it right away, but there was nothing I could do. I did the best that I could do in the moment for that week. And then after that, once I could get my Vitamix set up and my juicer and the refrigerator was working, then I was starting to stock everything up and starting to make my normal meals and everything. And things were starting to balance out a little bit, but it took about the whole month, since I've been here, the whole first month, to balance out my digestion, because just the feeling of being somewhere new was enough to mess up digestion. You know, trying to get everything in order, trying to just relax and everything, it all plays a part in your digestion. And so everything was like against the digestion, you know, from the food to how I was feeling and everything. I was happy. I was really, really happy and feeling okay and everything, but it's just that newness, you know, and then eating the foods that you're not used to, it really messes you up. So I really had a major breakout with pimples and zits and everything, and more than what I've been used to because ever since I went fully raw, acne has disappeared. But once I start eating cooked, even if it's vegan, cooked food, or those processed bars, energy bars, you know, processed healthy food, that's when, and even grains and stuff too, I just really start breaking out. And that's exactly what happened. And then the oil in my skin increased because I was eating much higher fat. And then, of course, the digestion. And there were times where I actually felt sick to my stomach because I just wasn't used to the food. But it was all that I could do. It was all that I could do. And don't get me wrong, it tasted really good. It did, but it really messed me up. So I'm going to share with you guys some clips of some of the food that I um, shared with you guys a while back, kind of when I first moved in. So it's kind of, I'm actually showing you the food that I ate. So it's just to share with you guys. I'm definitely not perfect. I don't claim to be perfect. And again, as much as we want to eat the best way possible, it's kind of hard to do, and so you always do the best that you can, and I'm good with it. I am good with it. That's just life. That's how things go, and that's how this went. So this is a raw vegan chorizo wrap with sunflower sauce, and it is really good. It's really, really good. It is very flavorful. And so let's check out what's in this. So the wrap, the original veggie wrap, says apple, zucchini, flax seeds, young coconut, turmeric, oregano, and black salt. So that's the actual wrap here, the actual wrap. And then on the insides, all the goodies on the inside is cabbage, sauerkraut, carrot, collard greens, sunflower seeds, olive oil, lime juice, nutritional yeast, sun-dried tomatoes, paprika, garlic, and black salt. So that's all the goodies on the inside. And then the sauce ingredients: sunflower seeds, olive oil, coconut nectar, lime juice, garlic, paprika, cumin, cayenne pepper, salt. That's the dip here. So we can actually imitate that sauce. Just take out the salt and the olive oil and coconut nectar. Use dates instead. We could imitate that. But this is actually really, really tasty. But that's the problem with buying things that are pre-made and they say it's raw. It goes along the lines like of the other raw foodies as raw gourmet. I can see why, because they load the food up with sodium and fat too. I know next from Lara bars are Cliff bars, and Cliff bars are much higher calorie, a lot more protein in them, and a good dose of sodium in there. The right amounts of fats and everything, but it's got oats in there and soy protein and all that stuff. Not good. My body felt it right away. So Cliff bars, I know I can't do these. I can't do those. I had like one or two and I was like, oh my gosh, I could tell. I wanted to save it so I could share it with you guys. So this one was peanut butter banana with dark chocolate. So I'm sure that chocolate isn't vegan probably, but I don't know, but I did the best I could at the time, but I certainly felt it. Okay, no more of that. Okay, so this next thing I had, it's a vegan wrap. It's from Trader Joe's. It's a spicy lentil wrap with spicy tahini sauce, okay? I couldn't even finish this darn thing, okay? Here's the sauce. I couldn't even finish the darn thing because it's so rough on my stomach. I am not used to such dense food like this, and it really has dried me out. Like I've been so thirsty, and it is so high in sodium too. I have never had so much sodium in such a long time, so I can tell the difference. It tastes good, don't get me wrong, but man, I can feel the difference. Here's the nutrition facts on the back. Can you guys see that there? It's probably kind of fuzzy. I'm sorry, guys. But just in this one whole wrap, 550 calories, 22 grams of fat, 720 milligrams of sodium. That's way too high. And just in one meal, that's way too high. I'm not used to that. 75 grams of carbohydrates, 10 grams of fiber, 7 grams of sugar, and 14 grams of protein. And there's vitamin A, vitamin C, calcium, and iron in it, but not a whole lot. but I typed it into Chronometer and there's not much micronutrients in it at all. So the ingredients, so the bean mash in it says it's lentil and bulgur mix, which is red lentils, onion, bulgur wheat, water, canola oil, green onion, parsley, salt, cumin, red pepper. And then the lavish bread, which is the wrap, is unbleached enriched flour, wheat flour, niacin, iron, thiamine, mononitrate, riboflavin, folic acid, yeast, salt, and water. I can feel that. That just does not feel good. I haven't had that in a long time. Then there's cabbage, and then the spicy tahini sauce is ground sesame seeds, fresh garlic, salt, fresh parsley, water, red pepper flakes. Now I can make that. I can imitate that dressing without salt in there. And then pepper paste, there's a pepper paste in the wrap, is just water, dried pepper flakes, canola oil, salt, and lemon. And it contains wheat. But I wanted to share that with you guys because that is I share with you guys exactly how I eat, what I do, and how things happen. That's just how it works. I will leave you guys at that. And remember to love being raw. Put a big old smile on your face today. I hope I did that for you. And I'll see you guys next video, okay? Bye, guys.